Hello, welcome to another episode of the Pure Football Podcast. And this one is an improvised one, which I think are the best ones, with one of my best friends in the business, which is Julien Laurens. Julien, how are you?
I'm very good, my friend. And you? Thank you for having me.
I'm good. And I brought you in because I'd like to talk to you about different things. First of all, I want you to tell us about you and your career. I'm fascinated by it. And I've seen you grow so much. Right now, you're doing with me 5 Live, the Football Daily. By the way, have you heard we are the best? How do you call it? The most streamed.
Yeah, or downloaded. Yeah.
Downloaded in the UK. So congratulations, Jules.
Congratulations to you as well, my friends.
Thank you. But you also are on ESPN. You've got your own podcast with Gab Marcotti, who again, one of my special friends in the business. BT Sport, RMC Sport, the Totally Football Show. Did I leave anything out?
You know what? You know me. I find it hard to say no to people. So whenever something comes up and I can talk about football and French football especially, or English football, I'm always very happy. So I try not to say no to projects, to programs, whatever we can build together that makes it interesting for people to listen, to watch, or to read. Then I'm all for it.
Well, Pochettino, as you know, received offers from Monaco, from Benfica. There were interests from Barcelona. You will hear all the stories or people denying it. Barcelona asked the question. It was an unofficial offer. Real Madrid as well were there, just if they considered at some point to get rid of Zidane, and they did consider that, but never made the move. Obviously, Pochettino was the first choice. So that was all those options. But 2 things were happening. One, I think he wanted to prepare himself for the big job. He's done enough to actually deserve to go to the next level and then see if what he's learned throughout this time in the Premier League and, of course, in Spain before, helps at the next level. So it needed to wait for the right moment. And Manchester United did not happen. Manchester City, there was the possibility Pep Guardiola was leaving, but he's not leaving. So Bayern Munich thought of him. There was all that. But that's what the first thing. Secondly, to prepare for it, you have to actually dedicate time to, for instance, learn about what the new players are like, how they think. What about the methodology that he's been using? Is it right? So he's dedicated a lot of time to that. Now, 13 months is a long time. And then when PSG arrives, and that happened about 2 weeks and a half ago, more or less, it's impossible almost to say no. So I've got the impression that if it hasn't happened yet, it's because they need to finish the deal with Tuchel. Tuchel, at first, was told by the club that they should talk about mutual agreement. And he said, actually, no, you sack me, so you pay for that. So that's my understanding, that once they finish that, both things will happen. The official sacking of Tuchel and the announcement of Pochettino. Is that what you hear?
Yeah, exactly. Same that I'm hearing. I think last night, on Sunday night, there was an agreement between Tuchel and the club and his coaching staff as well for around between 7 and 8 million euros, which, with 6 months left on their contract, on him and his coaching staff contract, we could say it's still quite a lot of money in the current context. But I think they wanted to sort that out, announce it, that Tuchel was leaving, and then there's only, I think, a few details to finalize with Pochettino and his coaching staff as well, who he can bring in. We know that he's got some very faithful assistants. Jesus Perez, for example, is one of them, but there's also Sebastiano, one of his 2 sons. So all of that they will sort out. But I think at some point this week they will announce that Pochettino is the next manager for the next 2.5 years.
2.5 years. So enough time, you would say, to influence something, attack something, create something at PSG, you think? Is that enough?
So he was very much in the discussion, and apparently Poch was very impressive in the conversation he had with, not just with Leonardo and Nasser Al-Khelaifi, the sporting director and the president, but also with the Emir of Qatar, who, this is his club. So in the end, he's taking the decision. If he wanted Guillem Balague as the next manager, he would have got you, and no one could have said anything. Unfortunately for you, Guillem, he decided to go for Pochettino, but maybe one day it'll come back to you. But I think 2.5 was what they were ready altogether to accept for the first time. But PSG very clearly said to Poch, don't worry, if things going well, we will extend that deal. It was more of a, there's a pandemic. I don't think PSG financially can really afford to commit themselves for 5 or 6 years, although they probably would want to with Poch. I think 2.5 was like, okay, let's revisit it in a year time or so, and then we can always extend.
You just reminded me, just after he got the sack at Spurs, guess where he went? Qatar.
Yeah.
And he was there with Cafu, I think, and he was being introduced to the whole. I don't know if you've been, but I've been, and I was introduced to the new stadiums, and the plannings, and how they organize the whole World Cup and what's behind it. And I imagine he must have met very important people certainly on that visit. But going back to the present, you know Pochettino from having followed him and heard him and talked to him while he was in England. And of course, you read my book.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's always a test. And you always have to answer that and then we move on. But basically, it's a particular type of methodology and coaching and relationship with players and directors. And so we're talking about somebody that needs to bring the kid that's inside the player, the one that started playing football, needs to bring that passion into them. And at the same time, he needs to know what the limits are. What is it that we're dealing with in terms of finances? And then he wouldn't impose players, but he will suggest a profile of player, which then Leonardo can go and get. So that's what he brings into the table. Do you think he will fit in straight away?
So I think it ticks a lot of the boxes. The fact that he was a PSG player almost 20 years ago to the day, he will be announced very soon now, and he joined in January 2001 from Espanyol at the time. I think that's good. He speaks the language, although as you mentioned to me, it's a bit rusty, but I think he will come back pretty good. But Sebastiano speaks French. I think Miguel D'Agostino speaks French as well. So the language would be important because, as you said, his methodology and his methods is so important that he needs the language to be able to pass it on to the dressing room, and the message had to go through. So on that level, no problem. So in Paris, they were very keen on someone who spoke French, which, for example, Max Allegri, who was also in the running, doesn't speak French. And I think that was definitely a big asset for Poch on Poch's side. In terms of his philosophy and his ideas, you're right, they're very, very particular and special. And he just wanted to be a coach. But this was not enough. And I think where Poch is very good, much better than Tuchel, is that he can do everything. He can mingle with the Emir. He can deal with Nasser Al-Khelaifi. He can have that relationship with Leonardo. He can be a bit manipulative at times. He can be charming at times, very charming, very in a very seducing way, and very serious and very dedicated to the pitch as well. Tuchel only wanted the pitch. He didn't want all the rest around. I think Poch will be very at ease with everything else around as well. And then in terms of football, it's done. I find it fascinating, Guillem, because will Neymar listen? Will Neymar want to do the effort, want to do the running, want to do the pressing, want to do, all the effort that Poch will ask, because he's a very intense manager and he wants his players to play with that intensity. Will Kylian Mbappe do the same? I'm really hoping so. And from what I've been told on some of the players' entourage, they're all very excited to meet Poch and his coaching staff, to work with him, to have that sort of new era, new breath of fresh air, new ideas, all of that. And certainly I think they'll be ready to follow him. And I think he's got that charisma. You know him so well. He's got that charisma to get the dressing room along very, very quickly, I think.
A couple of things to add from what you were saying. Yes, there is a bunch of them that speak French. Karina, his wife, speaks French as well, yeah. Which all that helps, of course. And on Tuchel and wanted to be a coach, I was at the PSG RB Leipzig game for CBS, and I took the opportunity, I think you do this as well, if you can, to cross paths with Nagelsmann and with Tuchel. To both of them, I said the magic words. I hadn't met either of them, even though I've been trying to meet them in recent times. I said the magic words, Pep Guardiola, and they both turned. I said, oh, biographer, Pep Guardiola book. Oh, I read the book. So that opened up a door. And with Tuchel in particular, he sounded almost like, I wouldn't say jealous, but he sounded very impressed by RB Leipzig. That game, they deserved more. They played like a team. It was synchronized. It was wonderful football, similar, if you like, to what Tuchel had produced at Borussia Dortmund, and that I think he was missing. Quite clearly then, he was thinking, this is what I want to do, and it's exactly what you described. So in terms of what Pochettino can do when he first arrives, do you think there is a cultural problem at PSG where the stars can directly contact the chairman, perhaps even the owner? I don't know, you tell me. But in any case, they have that direct line, which means that the authority of the manager straight away gets undermined. Do you think that has to change?
I think there's certainly a bit of that. I think there's also a sense, and so, certainly from Thomas Tuchel, I think some of his frustration came from the fact that I think he had great ideas about tactics, about formation, about identity. And maybe he felt at times that the players that he had with him in Paris, especially, again, Neymar and Mbappe, worked almost so much better if you just give them the ball and then let their magic and their genius do the talking and do the work. And that it was very hard to put a structure around that and to have a very defined style of football with patterns of play, considering the fact that it's much better to leave them, again, doing their own stuff on their own, because that's how good they are, really. So maybe I could see the frustration there, certainly. And maybe there's a problem. Maybe not a problem, but maybe it's a different way of working compared to what Tuchel was used to in Germany, for example. Nowhere in Germany you would have what you can have in Paris, where Neymar can go directly Nasser Al-Khelaifi or even directly the Emir of Qatar and just bypass completely your manager and even sometimes just sporting director. And I think, again, it's something that you need to get used to. But Tuchel, just before getting sacked, before the game against Strasbourg, he gave an interview to Sports One in Germany, and that's when he said there's too much politics in Paris. It's a very special club on that level. And that's why I think that Pochettino, having been there before, played, and even back at the start of 2000, the club was not as big as it is now, not as successful, but already you had a lot of politics because it was Paris, because this is the only big club in the city, because for many reasons. And I think Poch, having been there, having seen it from his own eyes, he was club captain as well, so he would have seen it closely, would know exactly why he's embarking on, why he would come across now as a manager. And I think, I think that's something that he's not scared of at all. And I think, what I think? I think at Spurs, they didn't give him enough responsibilities. And I really wondered if, as sometime at Spurs, he thought, I deserve more than just being the coach. Because I remember a press conference in a preseason before preseason game where he said, "Well, don't ask me. I'm only the coach here." And I think in Paris, it will certainly, of course, he would have to work with Leonardo, but there will certainly be more responsibilities for him, I think, than he had at Spurs.
So I feel that Pochettino needed to know at Spurs what his role was, number one, what the limits were, and for everybody to respect the agreements that were put on the table. So if they said, let's push that way, let's push all that way. So he needs to know the limits. So I don't think he's a demanding manager from that point of view, saying, I want to know everything. I want to deal with everything, because he can't. But that there is a respectful relationship with the ones in charge. In this case, would be mostly Leonardo, I imagine. Is that how it's going to work within the side, that Pochettino will be a manager with a lot of responsibilities? Leonardo will choose the players, and how do you see that working?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, because we know as well one of the reasons why Tuchel was sacked 6 months before the end of his contract, and why his contract would not have been renewed anyways, because his relationship with Leonardo was quite toxic at times, publicly criticizing each other, criticizing each other's work, not really get on recruitment, on players. Remember in the summer, Tuchel really wanted Antonio Rudiger from Chelsea on loan. Leonardo was like, Rudiger, no chance. And instead went to go and get Danilo Pereira. Then in a very childish response, Tuchel played Danilo Pereira as a centre-back. And I mean, sometimes he was like kindergarten. I promise you, he was just being a primary school again. He was like, what are you doing? And I cannot see that happening between Pochettino and Leonardo. Reason why? Because Tuchel was not Leonardo's man. He was appointed by his predecessor, Antero Henrique, before. And from the beginning, you knew that it was not going to happen between them two. And you know how strong a relationship between a sporting director and a manager, especially at top clubs, has to be for everything to be working. And that was not working. But Leonardo certainly was impressed by Pochettino, even if I think Leonardo would have been happy with Max Allegri as well. The thing with Allegri, as we mentioned, doesn't speak French, wanted a lot of money, around 12 million euros net a year, which is more than what Poch will earn. And I think in Doha, they were like, not sure about that. And also in terms of football, style of football, Allegri, as we know, and that's the reason why he left Juventus, because they were not happy by the lack of attracting football that he was playing. It was Poch is the complete opposite. You know exactly what you're getting. You know the style. You know how great attacking they're going to be. And I think that's the main reason why he was Poch and not Allegri in the end. But certainly I can see the relationship between Leonardo and Pochettino being far better than Leonardo and Tuchel, even from Leonardo and other managers that he had before when he was in the first spell at the club. And certainly I think the relationship, but also the communication between them, which is so important, will be far better than anything we've seen at the club for a long time now.
You made a very good point, a very important point, is that some are saying that Pochettino hasn't had to deal with these kind of players before. And that's forgetting that he had Ronaldinho, for instance, as a teammate when he was at PSG, or that he has been captain of teams that had stars. Stars, I think, in whatever team you look at, and it could be a 9th division team or 1st division team, they are the special ones. Every team has got 1, 2, or 3. He's dealt with them as captain. And when he first came into Espanyol, what did he have to do to decide on Raúl Tamudo, the biggest star legend of Espanyol? He had to decide about his future, and in fact, the decision was to move him out. So it's somebody that can deal with personalities. But going back to in full circle to the culture of the club, when you have stars that feel that they don't have to give any explanation to the coach, but to the owner or to the chairman, I've got the impression, from what I hear, that there was a moment in this year where PSG seemed to everything seemed to have worked well. Everybody was happy. Goes back to that apparently that meal in the restaurant, Berratti restaurant, just after the first leg of the Borussia Dortmund game, in which players started thinking like one, in a way. That's very difficult to do in that kind of changing room. That's one force going that way. They all want to do that. That's what we enjoy about football, to have a team and be with your teammates and have friends that play with you in the football game. But at the same time, there's other forces at play, like in Mbappe's case, in Neymar's case, in which they are superstars that want to be treated differently. And Neymar chooses, not my words, but words that somebody that's been in charge of him at some point, chooses when to play and decides about his holidays and stuff like that. So it's a difficult balance to make. We could speculate if it will work or not under Pochettino, but we should be positive, should we? That eventually he'll find a way of find the balance, no, between those forces.
Yeah, I think so. And he gave an interview back in 2017 to L'Equipe in France, and he said, at the start of my career, I was so stubborn in a way. I had my idea, and everything had to go through my ideas, and the players had to do everything I said, and there was only one way, etc. And he said later on, very much, I learned that at times you need to be a bit more diplomatic, maybe to see things a bit differently. Maybe there was a time where the coaching staff had a bit more weight in their opinions, and Poch was maybe a bit more open-minded to certain things. And I think this is a challenge for him, of course, because this is a different dressing room to what he's been used before at Espanyol, at Southampton, or at Spurs, with different characters. But nothing tells me that he cannot handle Neymar or Mbappe. Who tells you that he would walk in and Kylian would say, "Oh my God, I remember, watching videos of you playing for PSG. You were so elegant. You had the long hair. You were this." You don't know how they're going to react. They can react in a very positive way as well, and he will have no problem, and they will do everything he said, and he will have a great career as a PSG manager, for example. So I'm always a bit skeptical about, I'm not sure he can handle the dressing room like this. Let's see, let's see, because we said the same about Thomas Tuchel, and in the end, he had quite a good relationship with the dressing room. And as you said, they played as a team in that final 8 in Lisbon, where you saw them pretty much every single game live in the stadium. And you saw that when they needed to be united, they were united, and it was the dressing room and the starting 11 and the sub and the coaching staff and the manager. And there's no reason why Pochettino and his people can't do the same again.
I agree. The last thing I want to talk to you about on this issue. We were all waiting eagerly to the interview that Leo Messi gave on Sunday to La Sexta, to a very exceptional, good journalist called Jordi Ebolé, and a big Barcelona fan. And a few things came out of it. Just quickly, he obviously talked about going to the MLS at some point, to America. That, in my eyes, it's not so much his wish, but Antonella's wish.
Yeah.
May coincide in the same city, LA, New York, Miami, with Cesc, because also Cesc's wives would like to go to the MLS. So it kind of works at some point. There's another club to go to first, and he didn't get more involved into his future. But let me give you the impression that I had listening to it and translating it live for the YouTube channel, is that he was actually saying, or my impression is that nothing has changed in the summer. He's determined to leave, and he's not waiting to see who the next chairman is. The next chairman will have to convince him to change his mind, because he's talking about a Barcelona that cannot, when they tell him about bringing Neymar, he says, how are we going to pay PSG? Basically, he talks about a Barcelona that is in a really bad situation financially. They cannot compete at the level that have been competing, which means that he wants to win titles. He said that as well. Barcelona is not the place to be. It's a transitional period, he called it. Koeman are doing good things, but it seemed to me like he wants to move on. And it's City or PSG. Now, when it happened in August, it was about to happen in August with the famous Burofax, both PSG and City, and weren't the only ones, there were others, but they had the finances absolutely ready with this. What do you think PSG will have to do financially? Do you think things have changed with the pandemic, that there will be it will coincide with the departure of Mbappe? How do you foresee, because he's not leaving in January, by the way, Messi,
no,
but I think that possibility is still available for the summer. What do you think it will happen in terms of PSG?
So what's interesting is right now they're still saying, okay, our priority is to extend the deal of Neymar and Mbappe, which finish in June 2022. As much as doing that to keep them hopefully longer at the club, but also to secure that if they want to leave next summer, for example, in 2021, just a year before the end of their contract, if you have a longer contract, then whoever wants them will have to pay far more money. It's logical. But they also say, but if Messi has decided to leave, and it's obviously be a free transfer. I mean, nothing is free in football, but there won't be any transfer fee to pay physically to Barcelona. Then we look into it. We will try to work out the numbers. Personally, and as much as I would love Messi and Neymar and Mbappe at the Parc des Princes, I'm looking at the numbers, Guillem, and I'm trying, and I'm being like Rain Man, and I'm just going like the numbers and the zeros, and this it can't happen. If it cannot happen, they cannot afford to have the three: Neymar, who is on 36 million a year, Mbappe, who currently is on 24, I believe, and Messi, who is on 50 and 50 nets. It's just like, how? But they seem to believe that they can maybe do it if they get maybe Messi to reduce his salary a bit. I don't know. Maybe if you extend Neymar on the same wages and without the pay rise. I think Mbappe, if he extends, you will have to give him a pay rise and probably give him as much money as Neymar is on right now. That's another debate. But they seem to believe that it's possible. I would have thought that the only way Messi could come to Paris was if either Neymar or Mbappe leaves. And I don't think anyone can afford Neymar right now. And if someone can afford Mbappe, that surely can only be Liverpool or Real Madrid. And I'm not even sure that right now they have that kind of money to pay for him and then for his wages on the back of it. But maybe they do. So I don't know. I would like to say, well, this is all I have, really. They will try and they will certainly look into it while still hoping to keep and to extend the contract of Neymar and Mbappe. Personally, I think it's impossible with financial fair play, with the pandemic, with the money they lost from Ligue 1 being stopped in March last season, with the problem they have with Media Pro this season, and the TV rights deal in Ligue 1, which had been cancelled and they didn't pay. And so all of that mess, I just don't see how it's possible. But they seem to believe that there's a chance. So we'll have to see.
He says that he hasn't decided his future yet, and he will decide as he goes along. We have to believe him, of course. And I say City and PSG because City on one hand, 2 years at the Premier League, and then you can go to the MLS, to New York. PSG, on the other hand, and don't be offended about this, but there is, of course, a Qatar World Cup to go to. Yeah. And if you actually play in a competition that doesn't require for you to do the amount of physical energy you have to give out in the Premier League, then it will keep him at a good place until the last chance that he'll have of winning the World Cup, possibly. So from that point of view, PSG works. Plus, of course, and he admitted that in the interview too, still remains in that WhatsApp group with Neymar and Luis Suarez, and I'm sure they've all spoken about that. Hence, Neymar kind of, what would be the word, flirting with the idea, throwing little signs there. Do you think that that's what it's about?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they're so good friends and so close that you could understand why they would want to play with each other again. And I think Neymar was very intelligent, very clever in the way he did it after that Manchester United game at Old Trafford when he was so good and he scored the 2 goals. And then when
you were there, no? You were there.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, and Christian Martin, our friend, from formerly Fox Argentina, now ESPN Argentina, who asked the question. I mean, I don't think he even had to ask the question strongly anyway. I think Neymar was ready, and as soon as he could, here we go. I want to play with Messi again, and next season as well. And we know that can't be in Barcelona because they can't afford Neymar. So I think he was very clever. I certainly believe and was told that there was a lot of exchanges on Paris between Neymar and Messi on that WhatsApp group of Neymar saying, like, come over, this is a great city. I'm sure Messi believes, Paris is a great city for anyone who wants to come and live there, especially on the footballers' wages like Messi and with the family, and you're not too far from Barcelona either. And there's a lot of reasons why I think he could be very happy in Paris, especially with Neymar and Antonella and the children, the fact that Pochettino now is an Argentine coach in Paris and not Thomas Tuchel. They speak the same language, it's the same culture, all of that. I think you could see why Paris would make a lot of sense as well if they could afford him, for him to choose PSG ahead of Man City. I do think the attraction of working with Pep again, and you heard the words that he chose to talk about Pep. I mean, this is an incredible relationship I think that they have, and maybe again that would top everything, and he would say, you know what, I want to work with Pep again. I have 2 more years left at this kind of level in Europe, and with Pep I've got more chances to win the Champions League again, for example, than I have with Pochettino in Paris, maybe.
Well, it was fascinating to hear that actually Messi rang Pep Guardiola in August to talk, and they spoke for 4 hours, and they must have touched on everything, how he was going to fit in the team, the relationship, because when Pep Guardiola left, the relationship got a bit strained, but they back to normal. While with Pochettino, they've crossed paths in Barcelona. It's easy to do, and there is a respect between both sides. Pochettino being, for instance, the manager that took more points of Pep Guardiola's Barcelona at the time, with some victories and some draws that were very useful to Espanyol. There is a respect, and I'm sure that conversation will take place if eventually goes to PSG. But fascinating prospect for him, and one that for Messi, and one that we'll have to wait to see where he determines to go. But the one that I am looking forward to see, and that's another game we have to watch at the weekend. Well, you were watching PSG already. I wasn't so much, but now it's another game another team to watch alongside the other ones. But I'm looking forward to see Pochettino, to see what he does with your team. George, it's been a pleasure, and I could have been talking to you for another hour, so maybe
me too.
Again.
Me too.
And, thank you for your time. And yes, I'll be going to Paris soon, so I'll get all the advice that I need to enjoy this.
No problem. I'll send you all of that.